welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thank you so much for checking out the series. As always, if you enjoy what you see, you like this kind of thing, hit that subscribe button. You know the drill. We put out 3 new interviews every single week. So it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. And I got to tell you, one of my all-time favorite artists I've got the honor of talking with today, Mr. Jon Bon Jovi. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, Kyle. Thank you very much for taking the time,
No, man.
giving me something to do.
It is a real pleasure, and especially to be able to talk about this new record that you put out in the world just last year called 2020. A very powerful statement and still a fun record to listen to at the same time. It's interesting that, you know, you're talking about some big world issues as you have throughout your career, but especially on this record. But it also seems like a really personal record at the same time. Does it feel like a different record than what you've done at any other point? Because it sort of feels like that to me.
Oh, sure. You know, part of an artist's career, you hope, is evolution. And so this is a part of that evolution. And then 2020 was such a unique period in time that eventually, when I decided that it should be this topical record, and I took the position that I was nothing more than witness to history, it did become personal, but it had an overview of what was going on in the world around us. So it's unique in that fashion and manner. It's my perspective, but I couldn't be judgmental. I needed to just bear witness.
Mhm.
So that was the vantage point.
It's interesting too, because again, these are types of themes that you have hit on for years. I mean, we go back over 30 years when you're talking about Johnny on the Docks, you know, and so on. But now it seems to me like you are a folk artist as much as a rock singer, you know, in this vein. I don't know if it feels like that to you, but this is one of those, you know, if it's probably not the right way to paint it. If Woody Guthrie were alive today, these are still the types of songs that he would be writing about in some sort of fashion.
Well, that's the greatest compliment that you could ever pay the songs, and I appreciate that. But in truth, I mean, sure, the times around us and or me during each of these periods in time wouldn't have been enough for me to write. Let me rephrase that. In 1984, when Runaway came out, you know, I was 21 years old. I had single-minded focus on being the lead singer in a rock and roll band. Yes, there was a social consciousness to that song because, in essence, those some kids were getting off the bus and working the streets in front of that Greyhound station, and I was fortunate enough to be able to walk 11 blocks up to a recording studio where I was the gopher. You know, so yes, there was a social consciousness, but did I have single-minded focus of being in a rock band? Yes, there wasn't any more that I needed to write. Throughout the 80s, in the decadent years of Reagan and Bush the senior, I wasn't going to be writing about Ron Reagan. It just wasn't my calling. I was 21, 22, 25. So You Give Love a Bad Name and Living on a Prayer, in essence, were who and what I was and what I was going to say. But when you're 58 and you're living in the times of 2020, at such an incredibly a time that was testing all of us, how could you not write on a much deeper level? You know, the worst thing to me would be to try to recapture You Give Love a Bad Name and try to relive the 80s. I mean, in these trying times, I think that would have been a disaster.
Yeah, but you still, you know, find a way to make these songs as catchy and anthemic as ever in that sense, though.
Well, in as much that I write melodic choruses, sure, that's
Hmm.
not going to change. The subject matter,
Hmm.
you know, George Floyd and gun control and a pandemic, certainly weren't on the top of my list of things to write about in the mid 80s.
um, I think the other interesting point about what you're getting at here, as far as the songwriter part of it goes, is I believe they're more non-co-writes on this record than ever at this point.
No, well, not ever. But I usually hold them for the couple solo records or the Blaze of Glory
Mhm.
album. Yeah, I wrote most of this record, 8 of the 10 by myself, and I co-wrote two, just because some of the chord progression stuff in the other two were better suited with John Shanks collaborating with me.
I guess that's the point where it does kind of make it that more personal thing. I think that's why I'm hearing that in there, because this does seem like and I'll seg a little bit between what we're talking about here with the activism side of it too, because as you are being a witness to history, as you're seeing this, it's not just, as we say, walking the walk. I mean, there is talking the talk, but you get it in the songs. I mean, these songs that I think came later, Do What You Can. I mean,
Hmm.
what a great song that is. First off, just compliment on, what that is, what's going on. But was it a trick? Was it tricky to then work the pandemic into a song? Because that's not the most lyrical subject matter, I guess.
No, it's not. Um, it wasn't tricky if you paid attention to rule number one: bear witness to history. No conjecture. This isn't about me. It was about we. It was about watching the news and reading the paper and living life as we all were collectively. That was the one time, and certainly in my life, and probably I think I can say in all of our lives collectively on the planet, we were doing something together other than breathing. So we were living through this pandemic, no matter who and what you are and where you come from, we were living this. And so, from my perspective in New York and New Jersey, I was able to bear witness to the story around me. And the Red Cross ship coming up the Hudson River was something I'd never seen before. But instead of saying, isn't it about me and look at this boat, I just simply said, and there comes the Red Cross up the Hudson. So it wasn't tricky if you just remembered rule number one. Like a journalist, bear witness to history.
Right. Well, I say that you also do what you can, and I'll bring up the JBJ Soul Kitchen at this point, because I know that's been a big part of your life, you and your wife's life, for the past few years. How has that changed through all of this, through the pandemic?
It hasn't changed. Actually, what it did was reinforce the mission and the need. We started the kitchens over 10 years ago now, closer to 13, the first pilot program. So, what happened in the pandemic was our model succeeds because of volunteerism. And our model is based on no prices being on our menu. But when you come, and if you, Kyle, came and could afford to effect change directly, leaving $20 on the table, it covered the cost of your meal and someone in need. And if you were someone in need, you are empowered by volunteering and, in essence, earning your meal. So, with the volunteer aspect of our model taken from us, and the opportunity for you to come and to put down a 20, for example, we were left to the core of it, which was somebody had to cook, someone had to clean, and that someone who was cleaning was me. I was washing the dishes, which is how it began some 13 years ago. And Dorothea took my picture. Dorothea is my wife. She took my picture and wanted to post it on social media to keep folks informed. Let them know that if you're in need, we're here for you. I think what she was asking me in retrospect was the time of the day and the day of the week that we would be open. But what I blurted out was, if you can't do what you do what you can. And there I was washing dishes again. The next day I realized, well, there's a chorus. So I set out to write a song. And that one was pretty stream of consciousness. It wasn't too hard to write. It may have taken me a second day to get into the bridge, but the verse and the chorus came to me really quickly. And I was just bearing witness to what was going on. If you can't sing, do something to help the public at large. In my case, it was wash dishes.
Yeah, I was thinking back to when Obama was running, maybe the first time and probably the second time too. I mean, he talked a lot about volunteerism, and that became a big part. Of course, I will admit at this moment, as we're homebound and everything, we don't get to do as much of that as we, used to and would like to. But I do think that becomes one of the most important messages that you can put out there. And I'm not projecting anything towards you. I'm saying this as myself, but especially as we turn the corner here with a Biden administration that I'm very happy about, I feel like some of that can get back on track again. So, what you're saying in this message, I do think is very important.
I think it's important every day, all day, regardless of the administration or the times that we're in. And I'll give you 2 seconds on where we were with the JBJ Soul Foundation, which was founded in 2005 officially as an official 501c3, and we were building houses. And with the economic downturn in 2008, we realized that we needed to now feed the people in the houses that we had been able to build, and created this model. So interestingly enough, throughout the course of my philanthropy, oftentimes we'd get a lot of pats on the back, a little attaboy, you built houses, isn't that swell? Isn't that nice? And it was interesting to me because I think to myself, yeah, it is good. And that was my hard earned money. And those are the connections with the people that we're making. But a lot of the kind of people that I had met were sort of like, yeah, attaboy. But when we started the restaurants, people's attention really peaked. And they would said, explain this again. And it was such a unique model. It really doesn't exist anywhere else. And Dorothea dreamt the whole thing up. And we created these restaurants, the first one, the second one after Superstorm Sandy, the third one as a result of food insecurity on college campuses. And we were making a unique difference. Mm-hmm. And it was something that didn't take a scientist to find the cure. It was just sweat equity and a little bit of money. So here we were doing something that was necessary and easy to do on a daily basis. You feel good if you write a check at the holidays and you say, isn't that great? I gave money to the soup kitchen. Well, guess what? People are hungry 365 days a year. Mm-hmm. But it's a pain that we can alleviate if we focused on it. And it doesn't take all that much, and it crosses party lines, and it doesn't care if you're black or white, young or old, Yankee fan or Met fan. This is something that can affect anyone everywhere. And it's really just a difficult issue that can be certainly worked on if not eradicated.
So I'll go further down that path then. When you go from a song like that to Lower the Flag, which is one of the really powerful moments on here, how does that fit into the narrative of what you're talking about?
Well, Matt, that's a hot button topic, right? And it's something that's going to be different where you live than where I live, and not necessarily with the entire electorate, but your neighbor and my neighbor may not see eye to eye on that issue. And so you understand it. And so you listen to the differences of opinion. But again, here I was with a very difficult subject matter, having witnessed via the news 2 shootings, one that happened on a Saturday night and one that happened on a Sunday morning. So when the reporter came on the news on the Sunday morning and reported that a second one had happened, I thought he got the city wrong, because I said, oh no, last night I went to bed. It was Dayton, Ohio, and this morning I wake up and it's El Paso, Texas. And I thought, oh, he got it wrong. And I realized, oh no, it happened again while we were sleeping. So I had to write about it. And again, without taking sides, I just wanted to bear witness to history and sort of pose a question. How would you feel if this was your family? And I have to just lower the flag again. Mm-hmm. And taking that position that it's going to happen again tomorrow, but how would you feel if this was your family? And not taking sides, just posing a question. It made for a strong song. And again, that song I worked on tweaking. But it was a couple of days later when I wrote the bridge and listed the cities that were becoming commonplace, where these things were happening one after another, that it really became the powerful song that it is.
Yeah. When I first heard it, not that it's a direct line through there, but it reminded me of Hey God, the track that you'd put out in the mid 90s. I believe it was something like that, which was quite a bit of a darker song, I think, for the moment. But I found that connection to those, really kind of splice
Yeah,
those together.
thank you. Yeah, that one, it had several narratives, and guns and drugs and if I remember correctly. But this one was specific to the issue of
Hmm.
guns, and not even an essence of gun control or this. Just here's a state worker having to go out to the flagpole, lower the flag again. You brace himself for what's about to happen, and then know that the next day they move on.
Hmm.
That's just the way it is.
As a songwriter, it must be interesting too, because again, bear witnessing to history, asking just a question still becomes politicized
Yep.
so easily. And I think,
Yeah.
and I know this, I'm in Kentucky. I'm in a blue city in a very red state, and
Yeah.
and most of my family are way more conservative. And I think, the same people who are going out and karaokeing to Living on a Prayer probably hate this song at least, or something like that, and how do you react to that, within your own fan base?
I would be terribly arrogant and probably equally parts ignorant if I thought that my words should be valued more than somebody who disagrees with me. And again, why I thought I could take this position throughout the album was that I never wanted to be the one pointing a finger, just having opened a conversation. And by bearing witness to history, I hope, I pray, and I believe that he's the bad guy. Let's all point the finger at the bad guy. I wrote about things that were going on in all of our lives. I will tell you that truthfully, I did see. I don't read comments in the social media, and I barely read a review of the album because truthfully, there aren't that many people writing reviews about albums anymore. um, but with all that in mind, I did run into a wall at country radio with "Do What You Can," and I was disappointed. But the reaction from some of the program directors was, in fact, I don't want to play a song about COVID. My people aren't interested in that. Forget about the optimism in the message. The answer is no. And I thought, wow, if you can't do what you do what you can. Why
Right.
is that political? It's not. But, that was the opinion of the guy and he didn't want to play the record. Okay. My position simply was I have to write these songs.
Mm.
I really did. I had to write them. And then I wanted to share them. And then I hope that you like them. And if you don't like them, I'm sorry, but that's okay. I had to say what I said.
Yeah, I'm not country radio, but I'm certainly glad that you are writing these songs right here. There is a flip side to the record because, as we talk about a lot of heavier moments, there are lighter moments on here, and there are moments that probably would find an easier path in that direction. It's your latest single that I'll bring up now with "Story of Love," and again, just what a perfect sentiment in a song, said so well, melody, sing along. It's everything I'd want out of a song like this. And you've got a new video for this that's must have been interesting to put together as far as nostalgia goes, because this is all clips of your childhood and your family, right?
It is. Just to find that stuff was interesting and fun. And my brother went and sought it out at my parents' house and shipped me a ton of it. And then I weeded through it and sent some along to the video director because I had written this song about what became my family. And when it was finished, I realized that's about anyone's family. It's the circle of life. And then you had to be of a certain age to write a song like that. You had to have lived enough life to be able to feel like I'm in the middle of not only being a kid, but a young adult, to not being the grandparent yet or at writing the last chapters of my own book. So here I am in this kind of crossroads where there's probably more days behind me than there are in front of me, and yet I'm still feeling, vibrant and able to feel current and writing songs that I want to get on the radio. So anyhow, I write this song and I realize that it's a scrapbook of my life, but of anyone and everyone who would listen to it. And so, yeah, much like the rest of the topical songs of 2020, one of the topics was those days when you sat around your own home with family members for the first time, if not in a long time, maybe ever, that you spent that much time with, not only your immediate family, but maybe your extended one, and had to think about what that meant, and so did I.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd ask what it's been like being around your family without touring for that long, but what's it been like for your family to have you around that much?
It was good. I think that we all got a deeper understanding of each other. I know I did with my own kids, and I hope they with me. I know the younger ones who wouldn't have known any better because they're 16 and 18. They witnessed something in my work side of life that they'd never really seen before. I think that they got to watch the sausage be made,
Hmm.
where they watched me write, watched me leave the room, watched me go back to it, watched me curse it, go back to it, come back into the room, tell them about it, play them a version of a song, especially my youngest, who's now 16 and has found the guitar in a way that I think he'll be the one that wants to go down and pursue a career in music. For him to see that it doesn't just fall out of the sky, that it takes work, and for him to see that, I think that was enlightening, and I think that that was cool, and getting in touch with my older kids on a deeper level, forget about work, but just personally. My eldest is 27, and she's a girl, and so is my baby girl. Going into a next phase of her life, and forget the cartoon. Oh yeah, that boy comes to my house. We'll see. I had to get past all of those things and embrace her as a young woman that can make her own decisions, and with a wonderful young man and all those kind of stuff. So it's good. It's really good. It's just built the bonds.
Yeah. You mentioned your son and picking up the guitar. Mine, out of boredom, has finally done the same thing. He's picked up a guitar, and I walked in his room the other day and I found lyrics written out for the first time. And he's
Mine
learning
too.
3 chords, and that's a fun moment right there. I know how that's like now.
Yeah, it's great. And remind him that all you need is 3 chords. In fact, you could probably get by on two. Don't worry about it. Let it come. Just have some fun with it. And it's the closest thing you'll ever know to immortality.
Mhm.
Writing a song, the magic of a song, regardless of it if it's heard by the masses or not, it'll live forever. And that's the beautiful thing about songs.
Yeah. Become time travel. That's our time machines right there.
It
That's
is.
always, how we connect with them in the past. Um, while we're on the subject of guitar, there was one moment in this record that I was listening to it, and it's second or third time I had it on, but it was, in the background by this point, and I was looking at it was Blood in the Water, and I thought that guitar that's going on sounds so close to the Mark Knopfler sound of guitar. And then you follow it with a song called Brother in Arms, and I thought, is that a coincidence? Because that's really Brother in Arms is not a cover, by the way, but it's just so close.
The title is certainly was done by him, and I was. Well, let me first say yes. Knopfler and Dire Straits were high on my list of favorite bands growing up. In fact, I remember at one point in my life, absolutely number one.
Hmm.
The feel of a Knopfler character like that, yes. And then the title of Brothers in Arms on another song, I was aware of their most commercially successful record. But on the other hand, um, I knew I had the verses. And when that lyric came out of my mouth, I was like, this could be a problem. Until I looked up the dictionary definition, and it was the shared common experience. And I said, no, I can defend the position. because it typically in war, but the shared common experience. And as I was using it for life, I said, no, I can defend this, the slogan, brothers in arms,
Yeah.
and, yeah. My influence are definitely felt throughout this record. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have Bowie, who's over your shoulder there, to Dire Straits, to John Fogerty, to the Beatles, to Bruce, sure.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't say they had influences is a liar. You just can't make up your own.
You haven't done the full on covers record like a lot of artists would at this point. What's kept you from doing one of those?
I write enough. I write enough. I did some Christmas covers for something to do on the weekend. And I enjoy playing the odd cover with either the band or with the Kings of Suburbia or something like that. But I'm fortunate enough to keep writing.
Yeah, they keep coming. And again, they're great songs, and they still sound great too. That's another thing I was noticing as I was kind of listening to this record, and of course going back and listening to some favorites. Like, there are a lot of artists who are very guilty of, the songs have a hard time being timeless because of the production from the 80s and even the 90s. And while, you might feel that a little bit, here and there, it like, do you think about that when you're writing a new record, like as far as what it needs to sound like how do I make sure that it doesn't stay stamped, in whatever the sound of 2020 becomes?
I think that when I hear records on the radio that Bob Clearmountain and then that gated snare drum, who mixed two songs on this record, who I used to fetch coffee for 40 years ago. You hear those sounds and you go, oh yeah, that's 1984. I think that John Shanks and I are very cognizant of staying current, but also trying to be timeless. And again, because I'd be lying if I didn't say, when you listen to Slippery When Wet, there's a timeless bigness to the sound of that record that we've been chasing ever since, and I can't get. I think it's just the room. I think it's the openness of the recording. I think it was the analog tape. I think it was the simplicity of those records, because by Keep the Faith, we were digital and 100 tracks deep of bullshit that we were putting on top of, because technology allowed for it. And then by the time 2020 comes along, I was real quick in the studio when we were with the mixer and saying, my words to Shanks were, put that in the van. Put that in the van. Because it ain't going on the record. Go load it back in the van. And we would just take tracks and strip them away and strip them away and strip them away. I says, if I can't do this live, it ain't making the record. I don't care how many digital tracks you think you've got. Put it in the van. Because what I'm trying to do is make a record that'll sound good in 10 years from now. And again, it breaks my heart because you're listening on a pair of speakers that cost less than a penny to make. And I spent 2 years of my life trying to make that record. And those damn earbuds they're built like yuck.
To be fair, I didn't listen to your record in these right here, but
No,
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
But my God, I mean, we kill ourselves to make records.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to go to the studio and you got to have the room sound and this microphone and blah, blah, blah. And then guess what? Jane is listening to him on earbuds that Apple gave her, or she's got one speaker behind the couch and one up on a bookshelf. So you sober up when you're making a record and you go, I know how these records are being listened to. And it's heartbreaking. And the compression on different radio stations and in your car and it's all a series of compromises. And we all yearned for the old days when they sounded like X and Y. But It's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough. You know, you're just trying to get the message across at this point.
Yeah, my actual sound system is a very old school, old speakers, old dial equalizers, all that upstairs that I try to listen to it on. But I would love to hear a lot of my favorite records as the artist intended, because it's not obvious. You accept what you're given, in any given situation without even thinking about it.
If I, and I can go on and on, but if I were in a studio like we were mixing this album and you're intently listening with your eyes closed, standing in the center of the two speakers, and then there were days where I was getting a mix, like when we had Clear Mountain mix American Reckoning and Do What You Can, he was 3,000 miles away. So now I'm back in New Jersey and I have to remember that the Apple computer that is translating a different song to me than is in Clear Mountain's control room right now. And even though it's coming through some great speakers, what's coming through my mixer, which is nothing but a little, 8-channel mixer in my office, and my Apple computer are going to be compromised. No one's ever hearing the pure sound other than the guy that had his ear between the two speakers that was mixing it.
Yeah.
And it's a bitch, but it's a series of compromises, and that's how records truly, are made at the end of the day.
Yeah. I want to quickly ask about another side of your career, and that's the acting, because they're about to reboot Sex and the City, which you had a very infamous cameo appearance in for one of the episodes. What was it like playing that character so maybe against type of your own personality?
I barely remember it. When I did it, it was an episode of a show that was just starting its second season, and I have to be honest, I'd never watched the first one. I think it was a big show with ladies and HBO, and I wasn't really familiar, so I didn't get caught up in any of the hoopla. I just went and did the job. In retrospect, there's a lot of things that I did an episode of which were fun, in retrospect. They were all calling cards for my trying to get bigger roles in movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed the medium immensely. And it really helped me grow as an artist for a number of reasons. It taught you humility, because the folding chair waiting for the audition in the room where they judged you before you even said a word, to the opportunity to grow in something that was new to you, but in essence still was the arts. And then taking that humility back to the band was really instrumental for me at a time when we could use it. Coming out of the 80s and my doing Young Guns and then grunge happening really helped my band be stronger as a unit, because I could go back there with all the experience and success of Slippery When Wet, New Jersey, and then even Blaze of Glory as a transition into Keep the Faith, because that humility of the rejection of the audition and yet learning the craft and learning about the classic plays and what have you that gave me so much more subject matter to write about. It was a very, very useful tool. And then, it bit me when Hollywood said to me, if you're going to take this seriously, you should spend more time on it. And I said, well, my day job is still pretty great. I think that if I have to choose, it's going to be that. And so, I stopped making movies, and the quality of the film I was being offered was lesser and lesser. And, so I chose music. But I can't say enough about it because the medium is magical.
Yeah. Well, it's fun seeing you even popping up in those little moments, like, later on. Of course, West Wing to me is the greatest television show of all time. And, you've got a spot in that.
Yeah, West Wing or 30 Rock and things like that I did yeah, they were fun. They were, I loved doing an episode like that, trying to get another movie, and then, like I said, the day job was just more powerful at the end of the day. The creation was probably the most important aspect of because otherwise you're waiting in that folding chair and it was like waiting for the phone to ring. That was tough.
Yeah. Well, I am happy that you've continued the music, and I'll pull it all the way back around because this record 2020 is a powerful statement where you've taken yourself in your career. I mean, it's just the best. And Jon, thank you so much for continuing to do that.
Thank you, pal. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much.